Hi. Today what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go over the information that you have in front of you in the guided reading that is related specifically to the first 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights. Most of this should be already filled in by you watching your previous video, but I want to add some information that's not included. So let's get started. The First Amendment, which is what your extra credit is on, deals with the idea that we have freedom of speech, press, religion, assembly, and it is one of our most comprehensive amendments that there is. So the discussion of religion is the idea that our government cannot establish an official religion. In the First Amendment, you will not find the words, the separation of church and state. That's actually found in a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to a church with the idea that the government will never get involved in the church. Unfortunately, the other way around is not is something that came about by when we're talking freedom of speech and press, we have to talk a little bit about libel and slander and what is called prior restraint. Libel is what you say, what is written about you, and it has to be false, it has to be malicious, and it has to be true. Slander is spoken. So if you start a rumor and it impedes someone from getting a job because your rumor is wrong, then that is slander. Prior restraint is the idea that our government does not in any way prevent something from going to publication. It is called pre-censorship. So let's say our government gets the idea that there's a hurtful story coming out in the New York Times. Our government cannot stop that story from publishing. All right, so let's go on to the infamous Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The Second Amendment has not been ruled upon for years. In fact, it just recently, within the last 5 years, the first time the Supreme Court has ruled. And it involved a police officer from Washington, D.C., who has the strictest gun control laws. And they ruled in favor of the police officer. So really now the language is kind of clear in that people have the right to own personal weapons. The Third Amendment really doesn't have anything to do with us in modern era. It prevents the government from quartering troops in our home. This was a common occurrence in the 1700s, and they did not like it. Was basically putting military in your home to watch you, and it was a way of government control. The Fourth Amendment is the idea of unreasonable searches and seizures. It is vaguely protecting our privacy. However, privacy is not anywhere in the Constitution. Just notice I spelled the word warrant wrong. We all know that we need to have a warrant in order to have somebody go through our things, but as we discussed earlier, there's all kinds of exceptions to that rule. The Fourth Amendment is constantly being looked at and re-looked at because with the new era of internet, what is private and what isn't private, and what is free for the government to look at and what is open for the government to look at has been changed dramatically. The Fifth, Sixth, and Seventh Amendment, as you'll see over here, are called the Due Process Amendments. These have to do with what happens when you're arrested. So the Fifth Amendment has to do with your arrest, the Sixth Amendment has to do with your trial, and the Seventh Amendment has to do with what you can do when you sue. So the Fifth Amendments are basically the rights for you, the accused. You have the right to remain silent, as you see here. Those come from your Miranda. You have the right to an attorney, which is your Sixth Amendment. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to not be tried for the same crime twice. So if you are found not guilty, you are never going to be charged again for that crime. Now, for a different crime that's associated with the same event is a different story. But double jeopardy means that once you've been found innocent, they cannot go back and try you again. And there have been lots of challenges to that double jeopardy. Kind of an odd one that's thrown in is what is called eminent domain, and the idea that the government has the ability to seize our property if it is in the best interest of our government. Eminent domain has been challenged a great deal by large corporations, especially corporations like Walmart, who say that they can use the property and the tax base better than an average citizen. So far, the courts have ruled on the side of private property owners, but eminent domain has caused a lot of controversy and nervousness lately. The Sixth Amendment, you have the right to a speedy, which means a quick trial. Usually speedy means within 120 days. If it goes longer than that, it is because both sides agree to that. Our trials have to be public, and that is also being challenged a lot in the courts. Does that mean that does it have to be televised? And you have the right to an impartial jury. The Seventh Amendment basically says that anything that costs you more than $20, you have the right to sue. Of course, in the 1700s, that was a large amount of money. And today, court costs and stuff, just filing is over $100. So that, $20 is nothing. The Eighth Amendment has to do with your punishment. You are free from cruel and unusual punishment. Remember, the death penalty has not been seen as cruel and unusual yet. And also excessive bail, meaning that if you're pulled over for traffic violations, they cannot charge you a $1 million bond. The last two have to do with the worry that our founding fathers had that the government would get too big. So the Ninth Amendment says that all rights not listed in the Constitution are kept by the people. So your right to choose, your right to privacy, those are kept by the people and the government cannot take those away. Whereas the 10th Amendment says all powers not given to the Constitution or denied to the state go to the people. And this is the idea, they're called the Liberty Amendments, and they have gotten a lot of publicity lately as an attempt for the people to kind of regain control of the government. So when you start hearing in the news the Liberty Amendments, that's what they're talking about. Okay? The next page that I have is the answers to the multiple choice that's down at the bottom, or the fill in the blank that's at the bottom of your worksheet. Please double check your answers. All right, we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Not goodbye yet. I made a mistake. As you look through and double check your answers for the bottom of your guided reading, I do need you to go to page 76 and read about the 27th Amendment. This is a kind of a quirky thing in our history where the amendment was proposed back in 1789. The 27th Amendment actually was part of the first 19 amendments suggested by James Madison. If you remember, he had 19 and then he wheedled it down to 10, and those are the ones we call the Bill of Rights. Well, one of those 9 is what we now call the 27th Amendment. And on page 76, there's going to be a little bit of a summary about that. So make sure that you go there and read that. Thanks. Now it is goodbye.